Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Zach.
And I'm Seth.
And we are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right. We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's
right.
That is right.
Well, I'm back in the States.
You were technically back last week.
Oh, we already made the joke that I'm back?
Yeah, we made the joke and we explained that we set up the cardboard cutout of you.
Oh,
with
right.
Picture.
Yeah. Well, there goes this intro.
Well, maybe you left again. I don't know. Maybe you left the state again for a bit.
Yeah, maybe that's just how I greet everybody.
or maybe you just like zoned out for a bit and you meant you just left the state of mind.
That's true.
That's what I'm going to say. Every time I zone out, if someone gets my attention, I'll be like, I'm back in the state.
All right. Anyway, time to get this weird episode going again. So, Zach.
Yes, Seth.
What have you recently been playing?
Seth, recently I've been playing Star Wars Outlaws, which was released on August 30th, 2024. Star Wars Outlaws was developed by Massive Entertainment and published by Ubisoft. It had a bit of a rocky start. Some people don't like the gameplay. Some people don't like anything that's new Star Wars. And some people just didn't like how the game was a wee bit buggy on launch. I personally do like it. I did have a couple of bugs when I played it. I played it, I guess you could say day one, because I bought it the day after it released, and I was getting some bugs. Some of them were my fault. One of those bugs was caused by the fact that I accidentally installed it to my external hard disk drive, as opposed to installing it onto a solid state. This game will not run if you have a non-solid state hard drive.
Where is it available?
Epic, but you have to get it through the Ubisoft store.
I don't like any of these options.
I know, it's not great options. I assume it's going to come to Steam eventually, because I think Ubisoft stuff has been moving to Steam, I think usually after a couple of months or a year after release.
Guess you'll hear me talking about it in a year.
Maybe, yeah. But personally, I do like the game. There was a couple of bugs, I was able to remedy them, and I think any other bugs that I've encountered have been mostly patched out or will be patched out in the near future. In the game, you play as Kay Vess. She's a young thief from the planet Cantonica. Cantonica is the planet with the casino from The Last Jedi. In The Last Jedi, they go to Canto Bight, which is a location on Cantonica. That casino where they meet the code cracker, and then they let out the moose creatures that run across the field. That was a scene. Anyway, Kay Vess gets caught up in some things related to the crime syndicates that operate in her part of the galaxy, and you are forced to leave the planet. From there, you begin your journey across the galaxy, where you travel to Tatooine, Kijimi, Toshara, and Akiva. The game takes place in the period between Return of the Jedi, but after Empire Strikes Back, which means if you travel to a certain palace operated by a certain slug, you will see a certain person frozen in a certain substance called carbonite. And you'll also see a green armored bounty hunter who made some people grumpy with his own show. The game does involve dealing with a lot of different syndicates where you have to balance your likability among them. You'll have to deal with the Hutt Cartel, Crimson Dawn, the Pike Syndicate, and the Ashiga clan. All of the syndicates have their own missions, and gaining favorability with one will give you certain perks. For example, in most of the cities you travel to, certain syndicates have their own sections of the city. So for example, in Mos Eisley, there is a Hutt area of Mos Eisley, and if you enter that area and you are not favorable with the Hutts, they will shoot you. There's also an area of Toshara that you can enter that's Crimson Dawn. There's a Pike area of some planets. So you will have these controlled regions by the syndicates, and depending on your favorability with them, you may or may not be liked in those areas. However, you do have options to gain likability with the syndicates by completing certain missions. However, some missions will give you negative reputation with other syndicates. You might have a job to steal something from Crimson Crimson Dawn for the Hutt Cartel. And to make matters even more exciting, you might have a job to steal something from Crimson Dawn and give to the Hutt Cartel, but you get an offer from the Pike Syndicate at the last minute to betray the Hutt Cartel. At the same time, you also have the Empire that is constantly watching you, so if you piss off the Empire too much, you will get a wanted system, basically, and they will follow you. You can clear your wanted status by hacking certain terminals or paying off corrupt officers. So that's the kind of game you play, is you have all these different options, you have all these different ways of tackling the game, and there's really multiple ways that you can do missions. It's very stealth focused. I'm terrible at stealth, but it does encourage stealth, and also it's very travel focused. You get a speeder bike that you can travel around the planets you're on. A lot of the planets have very lush, big open worlds, so you get to travel across Tatooine and see various locations like the Dune Sea, the Lars homestead. You get to go to the Tashi station, and it's just one of those games that really lets you dive into the world of Star Wars in a way that is unique. I do know the game has had some mixed reception, and I say to people who might have heard some negative things, try it out for yourself and see if you like it. If you don't like it, that's just the way it is. But that's Star Wars Outlaws.
Nice. Maybe I'll enjoy it once it comes to a real game launcher.
Maybe. Well, Seth, what about you? What have you been recently playing? I assume through a real game launcher.
I threw a real game launcher, but arguably I'm not sure if it's a real game. But I've been playing God for a Day, which is going to be released in 2024. It's a 2D narrative-based find-and-seek game where you play as the Son of God, and you decide in a mobile-style Blessed or Condemned type of hide-and-find, like a seek-and-find game. And as you do this bless and condemn, ramifications play out in the town that you're in. So if you bless the mobster who runs the garbage company, he gets promoted to becoming the leader of the mafia and starts not doing such a great job at actually collecting the trash. Where if you condemn him, which is sending him to hell, then he's no longer there, causing the trash company to be slowed up, and then the trash company then works on a more efficient manner because he's no longer there. So it's an interesting game. It's definitely, if you like seek and find games, which are decidedly not everybody's cup of tea, you probably would like God for a Day. I think I don't know if it's coming out. It's definitely a game that feels like a mobile game, but I just think it's funny because you play as the Son of God and you have to get likes for the things that you do, and you get positive likes when good things happen, you get negative likes when bad things happen. So if you kill like a famous Instagram star, then you'll get negative likes because she was well liked, but then she was peddling some really bad drug, so then you'll get positive likes as people are no longer dying from the drug. So it's kind of fun. The demo is available and is free. I played through it. I did end up just condemning everybody and got a pretty high score. When I tried giving blessing on some people, I ended up losing the game. But when I condemned everybody, that was apparently the thing to do. So yeah, the game is being developed by Funky Forest, and there is a demo available to play. You get to learn about each of the people in the towns and figure out their secrets, like what people have they kidnapped or what are they cooking up in their van. I may pick it up. I was interested in it from the demo, from the preview before the demo, and then when the demo came out, I was interested in playing. It's been pretty fun, but yeah, we'll see.
Nice. Well, today's episode is a little different than a game about playing as the Son of God because we're talking about Doom again. This time, though, we're talking about Doom 2, the sequel to Doom. Seth, do you have any memories of playing Doom 2?
Maybe.
Okay.
What's the melee weapon in Doom 2?
Your fist.
Yes.
Or a chainsaw.
Yeah. But in Doom 1, it's just a chainsaw.
No, in Doom 1, it's also your fist. Doom 2 and Doom 1 are nearly identical looking games. The only difference is that in Doom 2, you get a super shotgun.
I definitely played Doom 2. I didn't beat it, but it definitely is more of the same of Doom 1, which is kind of why my memories blend in with my memories of Doom 1.
Yeah.
because
That's fair.
Doom 2 is also it is pretty much the same game.
In terms of my memories of Doom 2, they're silly. I downloaded a Chex Quest mod years ago. It added a bunch of Doom 2 levels. So this was back when, I don't know, this was like on one of our old computers, but I realized slowly after that the levels were pulled directly from Doom 2. So then I finally got to play Doom 2. I picked it up when it was on sale, I think when the Doom games first popped up on Steam. And since then, I love playing it. I think it's a great game. I think it's one of the strongest of the classic Dooms, and I personally feel it holds up a lot better than the first Doom, at least the first chunk of levels do. Some of the later levels, the levels set in cities and stuff, get a little weird, but I think Doom 2 is overall a great game. And we're going to talk about it. We're actually going to talk about it specifically because it is Doom 2's 30th anniversary this year. Actually, it's Doom 2's 30th anniversary technically this month. For some reason, the Wikipedia page for Doom 2 says the release date was October 10th, 1994, but the Doom Wiki page, which I trust a little more, says that the release date was September 30th, 1994. So we're going to go with the Doom Wiki's release date, which is September 30th. Now, this episode's not coming out on the 30th, but it's September, so what better way to celebrate the 30th year month of Doom by talking about Doom 2. Now, we talked about Doom ages ago, episode 16 in fact. And we talked about Doom clones as recently as episode 228, and Doom lore, much to producer Doug's chagrin, in episode 231. And now it's time to talk about the sequel. But yeah, it's a great time to revisit the history of Doom and id Software. So if you didn't listen to our episode that we did 234 episodes ago, then sit back, because we're going to tell you a little bit about the history of id Software. To remind everyone, id Software was founded by John Carmack, John Romero, and Tom Hall. They originally worked for a company called Softdisk, working on games like Dangerous Dave. While at Softdisk, they would meet up together and work on little projects that they had in mind under the name Ideas from the Deep, IFD. Part of their hobbies include innovating on technology that was available. For example, Carmack really wanted to find a way to do properly scrolling graphics on a PC. A lot of side-scrolling PC games that were out at the time kind of were choppy. They weren't exactly perfect in how they could scroll. He wanted something that could really emulate what consoles could do. So Carmack and Hall worked one night, basically, putting together a recreation of Super Mario Bros. 3's first level, inserting the graphics for their character of Dave from Dangerous Dave in place of Mario. Romero saw the demo, and he thought it was really cool, and he decided they were going to work on this demo a bit more. So they worked over a course of a week and 2 weekends, working at night to finalize a demo of Super Mario Bros. 3 for the PC for DOS that they could send to Nintendo. Nintendo was impressed, but according to Romero, they didn't want their intellectual property on anything that was not their own hardware, so ultimately passed. Now, at the same time, Scott Miller of Apogee Software had learned about the existence of IFD and reached out to Romero pretending to be a bunch of different fans. So basically, he was sending Romero all these fan letters. However, Miller didn't do a good job hiding his identity because all of the letters had the same return address.
Oh, yeah, that's a mistake.
So Romero confronted Miller, but Miller told Romero that he wasn't trying to do anything malicious. He was actually hiding his identity because Softdisk screened letters to avoid rival companies poaching talent. So he thought pretending to be fans would allow them to communicate in some way. And they did, and they struck up a deal, and IFD would begin pitching ideas to Apogee. One idea would become Commander Keen in the Invasion of the Vorticons, which was released in December of 1990 as shareware. For their work on Commander Keen, John Romero, John Carmack, and the unrelated Adrian Carmack received their first royalty check. With this newfound money that they had and some excitement, they left Softdisk and started their own company. And one of the first things that they would do would be to hire Tom Hall, Jay Wilbur, and Kevin Cloud, and they got to work on one of their next games, which would be Wolfenstein 3D. They also dropped the F from IFD, and they became id Software.
So they were just ideas deep. Now, Wolfenstein Wolfenstein 3D would go on to become a hit, and we actually talk more at length about Wolfenstein back in episode 58. I think only about the original Wolfenstein 3D. We don't go into details about other ones. And the team got to work putting together their next game, Doom. Tom Hall, however, would leave the company during the production of Doom, and Sandy Peterson and Dave Taylor were brought in before the release of the game. Doom came out in December of 1993 as shareware. Essentially, the first episode of the game was released for free via bulletin board systems and FTP servers. The release would then spread from there, and when you finished the end of the first episode, you'd be prompted to send money to request the full version. I recall this. I played a shareware version of Doom, and there was always the prompt where you could write to them and send them money. Now, id Software estimated that only 1% of the shareware downloaders would be used to buy the game, but this was still enough to generate $100,000 in revenue every day, which is impressive and also makes you feel good. It's estimated that by the end of the first year, the game had sold around 200,000 copies. It's also believed that by 1995, Doom was installed on more computers than Microsoft Windows 95, including computers in the office, which I really pine for the days you would get an office and be able to play Doom, and nobody knew what you were doing because there was no tracking software making sure knowing exactly where your mouse is and screen capturing your computer at all times, which is what happens nowadays. But back in the good old 90s, you could play Doom in your office. Nobody knew what you were doing. They just thought you were doing your TPS reports. Now, in 1995, GT Interactive would release a retail version of Doom featuring a new fourth episode called Ultimate Doom. Microsoft would also make their own port to the Windows created by Gabe Newell, who would go on to do other things, like start Valve. The game was also ported to tons of systems at the time, such as the Sega 32X, Atari Jaguar, SNES, PlayStation, 3DO, Sega Saturn, and Acorn RISC PC.
In the year prior, 1994, work began on the sequel to Doom, which was set to be released as a fully retail game instead of shareware and mail order. For the most part, the development was not incredibly intensive, as the game uses all of the same assets, sound effects, and the same engine as Doom. This doesn't mean that there aren't changes, however. For one thing, Doom features a variety of brand new enemies, and arguably some of these enemies I think are most recognizable as being Doom enemies. Like, people don't realize they don't come from Doom 1, they come from Doom 2. But these enemies include the heavy weapon dude, aka the chain gunner, who is a zombie that wields a chain gun. They have decently low health, making them easy to kill with a shotgun, but a few of them together can be formidable as they will just pour bullets at you. The Hell Knight, a smaller version of the Baron of Hell from the first Doom. The Hell Knight has half as much health, but they often appear together and they will gang up on you. Revenants, which are these skeleton-like monsters that launch rockets at you. If you've ever seen that meme, Doot, where it shows a skeleton playing a trumpet to the Doom music, that is a Revenant. Mancubus, which is this big, bulking creature that throws fireballs at you. They have higher health than a Revenant. They'll launch 3 volleys of fireballs at a time. The Arachnotron, which is a smaller version of the Spider Mastermind, which is the big boss of the first Doom. Arachnotrons have lower health. They are equipped, though, with a plasma rifle instead of a chain gun. Pain Elementals, very similar to the Cacodemon, but they launch Lost Souls, which are the floating, flaming skulls, and upon their death, they will spawn 3 lost souls at once. And last but not least, the Archvile. The Archvile is this large skeletal monster that will throw fire at you, launch you in the air, and then respawn dead monsters. They are obnoxious.
Now, this plentiful amount of new enemies may seem formidable, but you are given a new weapon to deal with them, the Super Shotgun. Basically the shotgun, but it fires 2 barrels at once in a powerful spread. The Super Shotgun is often able to one-hit some of the harder monsters in the game if you can just get close enough to them. Another addition is the final boss, the Icon of Sin, that appears as a giant wall with a hole in its head, kind of like the Flemoid wall.
It's a lot like the Flemoid wall, yeah.
Nice. Now, you have to aim your shots into the hole to kill the boss, which sounds worse than it actually is. And a fun, very well-known fact is that the thing that you're shooting at inside the hole is actually John Romero's head on a pike. And now, when you encounter the Icon of Sin, it will say garbled words, which, if played in reverse, say,
"To win the game, you must kill me, John Romero."
And a fun fact is that Romero didn't realize he would be in the game and stumbled upon it by accident when working on the sound effect for the level, which is great. Makes you think really highly of how your coworkers feel about you when the objective to beat the game is to kill your boss. Another Easter egg in the game is found in 2 hidden levels. One of these is in a recreation of the first map of Wolfenstein 3D, complete with Nazi officers. And the second hidden level, which can only be accessed by finding a secret exit in the first hidden level, is a Wolfenstein-themed level where you have to fight a cyber demon. After fighting the cyber demon, you have to find 4 Commander Keen sprites that are hanged by a rope. To beat the level, you have to attack the Commander Keen sprites that let out death sounds that is reminiscent of an old Ablib speaker card sound effect. That just sounds like schoolyard lore, though.
It does. There is a secret level inside of the secret level. It's relatively easy to find if you know Wolfenstein 3D, so it's in the same location as the secret exit in E1M1 of Wolfenstein. But for those who might have never played Wolfenstein, which, for example, when I first played Doom 2, I had not played Wolfenstein 3D yet, so when I discovered the first secret level, I didn't get to the second secret level right away. So it is kind of interesting that literally, like, schoolyard, did you know if you go to the secret level, inside of the secret level, you can find Commander Keen and he's hanging by a rope? Now, the inclusion of the Nazi references to Wolfenstein 3D did mean that the game was censored on release in Germany, as the country has strict laws for use of symbols related to Nazis. The game would then be effectively banned in Germany by the Federal Agency for Child and Youth Protection in the Media, which also banned the first Doom and Quake. This ban was eventually lifted after an appeal from Bethesda in 2011 when the restrictions set by the German agency were due to expire. Doom 2 is split into 3 parts. Episode 1, the space station, Episode 2, the city, and Episode 3, Hell. Most of the levels would be designed by Sandy Peterson, American McGee, the same American McGee who later gave us American McGee's Alice, and John Romero. The city levels are all pretty unique in that they are incredibly large and open, but they also don't feel like any real-life city that you would be going to, even though they are supposed to be cities on Earth. They can be a bit disorienting. In fact, one of the cities, which I believe was designed by Sandy Peterson, has a giant arrow that points you in the direction you need to go because it is a little confusing. That's, to be honest, not great level design if you need a giant arrow being like, go this way. But the other levels are less confusing, if sprawling. The music in the game, like in the first Doom, was composed by Robert Prince, and also like the first Doom soundtrack, most of the songs are inspired by groups like Pantera and Black Sabbath. And right now, let's listen to some great Doom 2 music. That was some great Doom 2 music. Seth, do you want to tell us how exactly Doom 2 did upon release?
Sure. Doom 2 would go on to release to a resounding success. Its software would ship 600,000 units to stores in preparation for the launch, and the shipments sold out within a month. Reportedly, many stores didn't even bother to put the games on the shelves and simply rolled out the pallets to the store floor to allow people to grab them, which, that sounds just great. It's like detergent and Doom 2. 2 things that you can just sell off a pallet.
Yeah, imagine going to Costco and just seeing a stack of Doom 2.
I mean, there could have been a stack of Doom 2 in a Costco. By the end of 1994, the game was the highest-selling software product in the US, selling more than 1.2 million copies, and it's believed that the revenue would end up reaching around 80 million in the US and 20 million in Europe. And remember, this is 94 millions of dollars, so it was a lot of money.
Also, I think it's important to note, it was the highest-selling software product in the US. That's not highest-selling game. That is high-selling software, meaning it sold more than Windows.
Yeah, and also Mavis Speaking teaches typing. Reception was equally positive, with Allgame giving the game a 4 out of 5 stars. GameSpot gave the game 8.5 out of 10 stars, and Entertainment Weekly gave it a rating of an A, because Why use numbers or stars? Now, in terms of the legacy, Doom 2 received its first expansion pack as the master levels of Doom 2 in 1995, which I think we talked about very recently, as Zach was one of his recently played.
No, it was my Retro Rewind.
Oh, your Retro Rewind. The CD contained 20 WAD files, or WAD files, developed by various authors. Master levels of Doom 2 was primarily made to compete against the rise of unofficial Doom WAD packs that were sold in stores at the time, such as the D exclamation point zone. Now, WAD stands for...
Where's all the data?
Where's all the data?
It was named that because when they released Doom, they knew people were going to go into the files, and they wanted people to go into the files so that they could mod, because they knew people would be interested in modding. So they decided to name where all the data was as a file, WAD. Where's all the data?
Now, another release was made in 1996 by Team TNT and Dario Milo Caselli called The Final Doom, which contained TNT Evolution and the Plutonium Experiment, 2 megawatt episodes, each consisting of 32 levels. Originally, Team TNT intended to release TNT Evolution for free, and this is not evolution, this is evolution. It's evolution with a little bit of evil. But id Software would go on to purchase the rights to it just before the release. Plutonium Experiment was commissioned directly by id Software for the release, and Dario Caselli would later go on to work for Valve and be involved in the development for Half-Life, meeting, along the way, Gabe Newell, who was already touched Doom by porting it to Windows. So it's like Valve was created by people who just were in the vicinity of Doom.
I do love that Team TNT was like, we're going to release this Mega WAD pack for free. And id Software was like, no, you're not. And they just grabbed it out from under them.
Which is, but it's just interesting to think about how Doom and id Software had to buy the WAD pack from the people who created it in their game system, where today if you put a mod through it like Bethesda, you can mod Bethesda games, you have to sell it through a Bethesda site.
Oh yeah, and Bethesda will be like, we'll sell that and we won't give you a cut at all, which I think they did for a bit with some of their Skyrim mods.
Yeah, and which is a different way of approaching your audience.
And hey, Bethesda owns Doom now. Look at that. It's all full circle. Now, Doom 2 was ported to a few different systems. It was included in the PlayStation and Sega Saturn release of Doom. And this release, as we discussed, I believe back when I was playing the game as a recently played, features new, more ambient soundtrack from Aubrey Hodges and has improved lighting and a bunch of new sound effects. Final Doom was also brought over to the PS1. Doom 2 was also ported to the GBA in 2002 and the Tapwave Zodiac in 2004, a system that we might talk about in the future because I forgot it exists, and that sounds like a perfect topic to talk about. An Atari Jaguar version and a 3DO version were also announced, never finished, probably because the Atari Jaguar and the 3DO versions of Doom are bad. In 2010, Doom 2 was released for the Xbox Live Arcade and included a new episode called No Rest for the Living. In 2024, Doom 2 was included as part of the Doom plus Doom 2 release from Night Dive and id Software, and includes another new episode called Legacy of Rust, which features 2 chapters, the Vulcan Abyss and Counterfeit Eden. Legacy of Rust does include 2 new weapons, the Incinerator and the Calamity Blade, and also features a handful of new enemies that were based on scrapped designs from the first Doom. And outside of the official release, Doom 2 has been a major part of the modding scene, along with the original Doom. And arguably, I think Doom 2 has had a bit more success in the modding scene because people really like the super shotgun. But that's going to do it for our Doom 2 episode. And before we get into our retro rewind, a very happy birthday to Doom 2. Congrats on turning 30.
It's time to get on to the retro rewind. So Zach had me play Hero Quest for MS-DOS, which was released back in 1991 for not only for MS-DOS, but also for the Amiga, Amstrad CPC, the Atari ST, Acorn Archimedes, Commodore 64, and the ZX Spectrum. Now, the one for the MS-DOS was developed and published by Gremlin Interactive, which is honestly a company that we could probably do an episode all about because they made a bunch of great ports to the MS-DOS, including Jungle Strike. The game, however, of Hero Quest is a recreation of the tabletop version of the game by the same name. The game is actually a pretty good recreation of the board game, with comments that I was reading through that they wish that there was just a little bit more action in regards to the combat, because the combat is pretty simple to resolve, but the rest of it it's a pretty good and faithful reconstruction and recreation of the board game. I enjoyed the time that I was playing of it, moved around the little hallways and selected my little guy and entered and explored the map. And if you're a fan of the Hero Quest board game and you want to play the board game without inviting friends over, you can always boot up Hero Quest on the MS-DOS, which is great. Next week, Zach, you can play Red Storm Rising. It's for the MS-DOS.
Oh, that sounds good. I'm excited to play Red Storm Rising. To get into my retro rewind, Seth had me play Jet Set Radio for the Sega Dreamcast. And I'll tell you, Seth, I really wanted to play this on my actual Sega Dreamcast. I don't have a copy of it, but my Sega Dreamcast is a version 1, meaning I could burn discs and just play whatever game I wanted. My disk drive died on my Sega Dreamcast, so I can't play anything on it right now. But I do have a Steam version of Jet Set Radio, which is basically identical to the Dreamcast release. It's just on Steam, so I played that instead. The original Jet Set Radio was released in 2000 and was later brought over to other consoles like Steam, and you play as a member of a graffiti gang that is really good at inline skating. You ride around a cel-shaded version of Tokyo, and you have to tag various things while evading cops. It's a really fun game. It has some great music, and the gameplay is incredibly satisfying. There's a lot of grinding. That's the emphasis, is grinding on rails, grinding on sides of things, and that was done, I think, to make the gameplay just easier, but it feels good when you do it, and it's a great game. It reminds me of a very colorful version of Tony Hawk, if Tony Hawk was also involved in a turf war with other gangs. Overall, though, it holds up. I think the music is probably the best part, but it is a fast-paced game if you like that, and I think it really shows what the Dreamcast had to offer, which is unfortunate that I couldn't play it on my Dreamcast, but overall, though, Jet Set Radio holds up, and the Steam version is just as good, if not a little glitchy, but still fun to play. Next week, though, Seth, you can play Yogi Bear Cartoon Capers for the Sega Genesis. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to our Doom 2 episode, and if you have any memories of playing Doom 2 that you want to share with us, maybe any memories of picking up a copy from a pallet or playing one of the many mods or WADs out there of Doom 2, then let us know, and you can do so by emailing classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. We're available wherever podcasts can be found, be it iHeartRadio or Podbean or iTunes. We're also available on Facebook, Classic Gaming Brothers, Instagram, Classic Gaming Brothers, X CG Brothers Pod, Blue Sky CG Brothers Pod, and of course, we're available on YouTube as Classic Gaming Brothers. And with that, I don't think I'm forgetting anything. So Seth, do you want to let me know if I am forgetting something?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Seth.
And I've been Zach.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's
right.
That's right.